All right, so officially welcome to everyone, Sally, Elaine, and Laura. Nice to have you back in the Zoom room. It's been a while. Great you could join us. So yeah, we'll just dive into our teaching for today. Oh, no, what's happened? The YouTube going live. Google Chrome just expired again. It's really rather annoying, but we are live, it appears. Okay, so that's good. So give me a moment just to see if I can get the opening. Hopefully it won't collapse again. All right, let's have a look at our email. And get the live stream going. I'll share my screen. We'll dive into the teaching for today. Okay, there we go, all done. And I'm going to get that one back up. All right. So there you go. Share my screen. Oh, it's just collapsed again. All right. Okay. So that's Google Chrome just expired twice. Let's try another browser, shall we? Store that one as well. All right. So let's try. No, we don't want to switch. Okay, hopefully this will be stable. So I'm sharing my screen. Can you see that all right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to read the quote for us, Sally, please?
When you give yourself away, when you surrender yourself as a divine vessel, you impact lives eternally.
Nice quote by a lady called Cicely Tyson, who is an African-American actress. So it follows on nicely from yesterday's, which, if you recall, was about stilling your mind, and is a call to empty the vessel that is your mind of your own thoughts and emotions. So that process of emptying is called surrender to divine will in many spiritual teachings, and it gives those who do surrender the power to impact their own and other people's lives eternally. We can see that very clearly from the lives of legendary spiritual masters like Yeshua, Siddhartha, the Buddha, Lao Tzu, whose lives led to the founding of religions that billions of people now follow. And it's tempting to, as Alan Watts described it, pedestalize them. So that we pedestalized Jesus and put him on this pedestal and said, you know, you're somehow above everyone else. You're so special. You're the only son of God, believing he's some kind of superhuman, had access to special powers that aren't available to everyone. But the truth is that we all have the same power as they had right now. So that power is available to everyone. It's nothing special. They just have the capacity to download it and allow it to come through generally a lot of mind training that opened them up to be able to do that. So Yeshua himself tells us this very clearly, not only throughout A Course in Miracles, but also in the Gospel of John. So there's a quote directly from him when he was with us on planet in his last lifetime. So Elaine, if you want to read that one for us, please.
Very truly, I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these.
So it's interesting because he said that, and it's quoted in the Bible, and yet most traditional Christians don't believe that at all. They don't believe that they are on a par with Jesus, as they would probably call him, or Yeshua, as his real name was, and that they could do even greater things than him. In fact, many people would consider that blasphemy, even though he said it himself. It's actually a quote from the New Testament. It just goes to show you that we have this tendency to pedestalize, to put people on a pedestal, to make them somehow better or superior to us, because that means that we're still separate from them. And the greatest threat to the ego is unity. So if we think, we genuinely believe that we are one with Yeshua, then we must have the same power as he does. And of course, the ego is going to try and keep us as far away from that power as possible, because it's the power that undoes it. And so it's got to believe that we are not equal to the likes of Yeshua and the Buddha. Somehow we're less than. And in that less than, we somehow have our own special identity. That's, remember, always what it wants. Even if that's weak and disempowered and afraid and lonely and scared and not powerful at all, at least it's a separate identity. Remember, that's all it's interested in. So although people tended to pedestalize people, spiritual masters like Yeshua and the Buddha after their passing, none of the true spiritual masters ever asked people to worship them, some kind of demigod, because then they wouldn't have been a true master. In fact, quite the opposite. As Yeshua says, you will have the same power as I have, and even greater power. You can do greater things than I have done. So he wasn't limiting people at all. He didn't say he was above them. He didn't say you have to worship me. When he said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, the only way to the Father is through me, he meant through my example. But that's been misinterpreted. And people now think, well, you have to somehow worship him, or accept him into your life as your savior, whatever they interpret. But actually the true interpretation is that you just need to follow him in his footsteps and use him as an example of someone who has awakened, and follow his example. So do what he did, have the same thought system, behave in the same way as he did, and you can have the same power and also be freed into eternal life as he was. So we can all live a surrendered, inspired life and allow ourselves to be used as an instrument of doing the highest good, which is to awaken others to their true nature in the same way as these masters themselves did during their earthly lives. What made them so special? Well, nothing. They were born, they had a life, they had spiritual training, and they had their own challenges and their own struggles, and they just stuck to it. And they were very persistent, which is what set them apart from their peers, and they got a following, and because their teaching was authentic and true, it just lasted down the edges, and so we still talk about them. But there's really no difference between you and them, just a matter of the time and place in which they were, as opposed to us. Now there's a lot more people on the planet, things are a lot busier, and probably those days of one person making such an impact in the world perhaps are over, because there's a lot more people, There's a lot more competition for attention. It's a very, very different world from what it was 2,000 years ago. But yet, our purpose is still the same. Through all of that, our purpose here is awakening. It was awakening 2,000 years ago, and it still is awakening, just been updated into a modern context. And we have to navigate that modern world in order to awaken. Our lessons will come in the modern world, but it's the same script essentially. Nothing really has changed. There's still sickness, pain, suffering, and death on this planet, seemingly all pervasive, and there's still the need to awaken from it and show other people the way to awaken from it as well. Okay, so to help you understand what it means to surrender your life, then I've given you this documentary called The Foundations of Star Wars, which is really interesting. I thought we might just have a look at the Jedi philosophy. So the Jedi were, the equivalent of the spiritual teachers and masters, and George Lucas based his story on what happens in this world. So he took spiritual principles from this world and incorporated them into the Jedi Order, and then they have an opposite, which is the Sith. So they are the Jedi's kind of the Christ and the Antichrist. They represent the extreme or the epitome of the ego, which rather than letting go of all their personal desires and fears to serve a greater good, which is freedom, peace, and joy for everyone, the Sith want to satisfy their personal desire for power and subjugate the entire galaxy to their personal will. So it's about me with the Sith, and the Jedi are selfless. The idea is to surrender to the higher self, to be servants of the greater good, and to renounce all personal desires. So really the same kind of teaching as in many spiritual teachings. So Jedi philosophy, let's just have a look, see if we click on that. So the Jedi principles, they have rigorous training. It's a spiritual order. Through rigorous training, intensive self-discipline, they have this supernatural power known as the Force. So they tap into this power called the Force, and through the Force they can move objects with their mind. They can perform incredible feats of strength. They can connect to certain people's thoughts. George Lucas, who was the creator of the whole thing, did extensive research. He drew on the hero's journey of Joseph Campbell. I think he drew on a lot of the Buddhist principles, a lot of Eastern teachings, to come up with his story. That the Jedi are these warrior monks who keep peace in the universe, avoiding the use of violence except as a last resort, the mission to use their power to keep the governments of all the planets in line so they don't do terrible things. So they have the moral authority to do that, since they're the most moral of anybody in the galaxy. So very much, along the lines similar to real world Hindu philosophy, religious tradition, including Buddhism, Jedi ethics focus on compassion for others, mindfulness, non-attachment, escaping personal suffering, which is all the light side of the Force. So they view fear to be the root of suffering. Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. So the Jedi warn that excess of these negative emotions can turn their members away from the light side of the Force towards the dark side, which embraces personal passions, aggression, hate, rage, fear, and bitterness as a way of life. So the Sith are the followers of the dark side, the traditional enemies of the Jedi. So they embrace the ego. They go fully into all of that anger, aggression, hate, rage, fear, and they draw their power from that. Seemingly, that makes them powerful and strong, although ultimately those things are weak. So the Sith ultimately seek violence and absolute rule of the galaxy. Jedi work to protect democracy, peace, and justice. So the Jedi are like the good guys, the the spiritual masters of this world, trying to maintain peace and justice for all and fairness. And the Sith are like the tyrants of this world, a Hitler, any sort of Putin, Hitler, these kinds of dictators would be Sith type lords who seek to rule others and control others. So teaching is, the principles in this so-called fictitious galaxy are very much based on what happens in this world. And the whole point of the Star Wars franchise was it is a spiritual teaching. George Lucas, but made them not just to make money, but to bring a message into the world, to teach these principles in a sort of subtle way by people watching the movies, learning, from the dialogue what these principles are. So actually a very deep teaching. I don't know if you listen to this, but it's definitely worth listening to this documentary film on the foundations of Star Wars, because it goes into the spiritual principles. And what struck me when I watched it was the striking parallels between the story in this imaginary galaxy and Star Wars and what's happening in our world right now with increasing governmental control, corporate control. We've just been through 3 years of COVID, and so it seems seemingly, democracy is at threat, which is kind of one of the major themes of the Star Wars franchise, is that democracy is being threatened by this desire to control, which is coming from the Sith Lords. There's one who eventually does take control, and democracy ceases to be democracy; it becomes an empire. So yeah, I recommend watching that. Definitely worth watching, and just you'll see the principles, the parallels with today's world, and the spiritual teachings like A Course in Miracles and Buddhism and Taoism that we've been looking at and studying. That all of that's incorporated into the Jedi philosophy. So just another way of learning those principles in quite an entertaining way. There's entertainment, there's a story, but it's a story with a much deeper message. George Lucas, at the beginning of it, says, a lot of people think Star Wars is just a bunch of space battles and it's all a bit trivial, but actually it's much deeper than that. Underneath all of the sci-fi and the special effects and the action is this interplay between the dark and the light forces. The light, that's really what the story is about. It's about dark versus light. And that's always fascinating. Every epic movie and every great film franchise is based on that dynamic, light versus dark. You think of, there's the Star Wars, there's Harry Potter movies, what else? Lord of the Rings, The Matrix, all about the dark versus the light. And they just have their take on it. But that's the epic drama of this world. So that drama engages us in a story, because in fact it's the only thing that creates the story. Without the duality of light and dark, there would be no story. There's no world, there's no story. So that is what creates the drama of this world, and that's what creates these quite gripping stories. So ultimately, the point of the story is to transcend the duality, but we can learn. The Holy Spirit's job is to interpret whatever our experiences are in this time-space story that we seem to be caught up in, to learn ultimately how to transcend it and escape from it entirely. Okay, so any questions on any of that? Has anyone watched that? Did you watch Revenge of the Sith last week? Because that would then prepare you for this. Any questions on the Star Wars Jedi philosophy? No? Okay, so shall we move on then into our lesson for today? So just going to bring up lesson 126 in Word in case we need to edit it. So another lesson on giving and receiving. So this one is lesson 126. All that I give is given to myself. Or alternatively, all that I give is given to myself, capital self. Thought that was quite a nice variation, alternative. So yeah, so I'm going to ask Sally or Lane to read paragraph 1 in the original only alternative. Not much to translate, but there's a couple of terms there. Putting something in the chat. Okay. Rewatch Star Wars and the Matrix. Yeah, definitely worth. I mean, Star Wars is 9. There's 9. So it's like a 24-hour mission. But Lauren, I'd recommend if you watch number 3, which is called Revenge of the Sith. It's a great one to really highlight the duality between the two thought systems, and there's also a powerful message there in so how Anakin became Darth Vader and how he went from the light to the dark, and it's a powerful story there, powerful principles behind that. Basically, by honoring his fear, he had a dream that his wife would die in childbirth. Because he was attached to his personal story, his mother had died 10 years earlier, and his wife is an older woman, so he's kind of taken his wife as a surrogate mother. Now he doesn't want to repeat the pain of losing, so he says, I'll do anything to save her. And of course, then, once you make someone very special, and he's going to do whatever, so he's killing other people, he himself loses her. She says, I can't love you anymore, and she ends up dying of in childbirth because of his actions. So he made his fear come to pass by honoring it and believing it, which is a very powerful principle. That's if we honor fear, then it becomes our reality, and we make manifest that which we fear. So that's in Revenge of the Sith. So yeah, watch that if you don't have time to watch them all. Watch that one.
Definitely watch that. I don't remember that because I probably wasn't looking at Star Wars in the light of spirituality at that time.
Yeah.
So wow.
Yeah, no, I mean you got to watch it with different eyes. If you watch it from a spiritual point of view, you see the spiritual messages running through, all the movies, through the whole series. It's really about the interplay between the light and the dark, and there's a whole, George Lucas is actually a genius because he's created a whole world. So there's a whole mythology, there's a history, there's a story. He's created all of that history from his imagination based on principles in this world, but as an allegory, a spiritual teaching, in much the same way as Tolkien did, with Lord of the Rings. Created a whole world, with its own languages and own mythology. And these people are spiritual teachers. They've come into the world to teach through the mechanism of stories these principles for those who have eyes to see. You see that Star Wars was primarily a movie, not a book. Tolkien wrote a book which became a movie, but it's still storytelling. They're storytellers that have this deep message of the light versus the dark that can really help people to find the light in themselves if they have the eyes to see. So if you watch all of those movies, there's 9 core movies. The other ones are called a sort of spin-offs, and I haven't really bothered with those, to be honest, because the storyline of the 9 is that it's the whole way through. It's the light versus the dark, and it shifts and changes between the light and the dark, and the spiritual principles of the light are shown, and the principles of the dark are shown, and the contrast between them is shown very clearly. And it's very clear that they don't mix. The Sith and the Jedi will never agree, because they believe in opposite thought systems. which is why they fight, and that's the clash. The wars are between the light and the dark, and the Sith are always behind the one side and Jedi behind the other, and there's this continuous interplay between them until the final climax, when it's the final confrontation between the light and the dark. And I won't tell you the outcome, but you can probably guess what happens in number 9. So it's really an epic series, and any epic, these epic movies and epic series always have the light dark dynamic, because that's what makes it epic, because that is the theme of the entire world. That's the epic drama of the universe, is the interplay between light and dark that we're all part of. And so if we see it in a movie, then we resonate with it, because it's like, well, actually that is what life in this world is about. It's the interplay between those dualities, and how we manage that. What do we choose? Every person must choose which side they're going to play on. And we're all being presented with that choice all the time, every moment. These movies just kind of highlight it and say, yeah, okay, so there's a split in the Force, and it's the dark or the light, but they disagree. You can't have both. I think that's really the key teaching of A Course in Miracles, and also the key teaching of Star Wars. You can't reconcile them. They're always going to be opposite, and you must choose. You're either a Jedi or Sith, but you can't be both. Sometimes vacillate. You can start as a Jedi like Anakin Skywalker did, and then he switches to the dark and he becomes Darth Vader, and then during the series he switches back. He has a change of mind and a change of heart, and he comes back to the light. So and that happened again later on. So very interesting story, entertaining, but watch it with spiritual eyes, because you'll see that there's some profound spiritual truths. And listen to the dialogue. Some of the dialogue is really brilliant, especially when people like Yoda are speaking, because there's a teaching that's coming through in the dialogue. So as I said, George Lucas is a genius who found a way to teach these principles in and through blockbuster movies that would be watched by tens, if not hundreds of millions of people, to get the message across into the world. Okay, so shall we have a look at today's lesson, 126. This is all that I give is given to myself. So Sally, do you want to read that one for us?
Do you say the alternative or both of them?
What do you think?
Just the alternative.
No, isn't much to do. Today's idea.
There's an alternative version.
Yes, so we are translating. I'm not sure we were doing this when you when did you do when did you do your 3 weeks of the course?
I don't remember.
I think it was
I've
2
been
years
knowing you for like 20 years. I don't
I
remember.
think it was 2 years ago. You did
Maybe.
the 3 weeks, but I think we'd really fully embarked on this. So what's unfolded through the hours and hours of live Zoom calls we've done is that an alternative, a translated version of the lessons and the text is very helpful for people. So we translate some of the terms. So for instance, today's idea, completely alien to the ego. Well, the ego is just the belief in separation.
Okay.
So the belief in separation, now that becomes a bit more understandable, doesn't it? Okay, so that's all this thing is. The ego is just a belief in separation. The master belief in separation that has become the basis of a thought system. But that's all it is. It's just a belief. So it's not that scary if you just call it a belief. Because too often people go, oh, the ego is so big and so overwhelming, so scary. No, it's just a belief in separation, which is untrue. It's a false idea, as he says. So Sally, do you want to read the rest of that?
Today's idea, completely alien to the belief in separation and the thinking of the world, is crucial to the thought reversal that this course will bring about.
Let me I just want to record this. So If you can read that one again.
Today's idea, complete alien to the belief in separation and the thinking of the world, is crucial to the thought reversal that this course will bring about. If I believed this statement, there would be no problem in complete letting go, certainty of goal, and sure direction. I would understand the means by which freedom comes to me and would not hesitate to use it now.
Yeah. So what we've done is we've just changed some of the key terms like ego, salvation is freedom, and forgiveness becomes letting go. So those are the key terms that change.
So did you create the alternative, or is it
Yeah.
someplace else?
We just sort of figured it out as we went along and said, okay, those
Okay.
terms sort of make more sense. So there's a lot of people like with a term like forgiveness, and maybe not understand what it means. Okay, what does forgiveness really
Too
mean?
esoteric. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's not clear, is it? Is there a universal definition of forgiveness? Not really. And he actually talks about that in this lesson. There's a teaching on, the misconceptions about what forgiveness means. So there's a lot of, uncertainty and misinterpretation. Whereas letting go is so simple, isn't it? Yeah, okay, well, letting go, how easy is it to misinterpret letting go? I mean, letting go clearly is like, I got to let go of this. We all kind of know what that means. If I'm holding on, if I've got negative thoughts and emotions about something, then I'm not letting it go. I'm holding on to it. So really it makes it more practical and doable, which is the whole point of the translation. So letting go means letting go of any negative thought and emotion, which actually is all that forgiveness is. Forgiveness means that I need to let go of any negative thoughts and emotion that I'm holding on to. It's really not about the other person. It's about my own thoughts and emotions that are bothering me, seemingly in response to them. They might have done something or not done something, said something or not said something, and then that triggers me. But in the end, it's my own thoughts and emotion that's the problem, isn't it? Always. It's not really about them. It's about my reaction to them, which is under my control. So letting go just gets right to the core of the issue and says, right, you've got some unpleasant, uncomfortable, negative thoughts and emotions going on. Become aware of them and choose to let them go, and drop them because they're not helpful, and you're never going to find peace or happiness if you hold on to those. And then the other person benefits because you're not holding anger and resentment, and so likely that your relationship will improve with them, but you've done it for yourself, really. So he goes into this. It's actually a good lesson because he's talking about forgiveness and some of our misconceptions of
You know me and forgiveness.
yeah, I know. It's a tricky one. How do you explain forgiveness to people? Not that easy. So we've just changed the language, and then you say, okay, well, forgiveness is just letting go of your own stuff. That's all that forgiveness means. Okay, well, that's doable. I can understand that. Am I holding on to anything? Am I feeling at all uncomfortable? And forgiveness is necessary when you're feeling uncomfortable, when there's something's not sitting right with you. Then there's a forgiveness or letting go that needs to happen, which brings about freedom. So salvation is just freedom. It's a freedom of the mind, and that's what letting go brings. So just trying to really demystify the course. I think there's a lot of because of the language and the length of the book, and so there's a lot of misconceptions, and a lot of people get a bit scared of it. And they go, "Oh, this is such a big, this huge book, and it's a tome, and it's like not really understandable." And actually, it's very, very, very simple. Such a simple teaching, which is the genius of it. He's just saying it's one or the other. It's the light or the dark. And to choose the light, you must let go of your dark stuff. It's that simple. But to actually train yourself to recognize what it is you need to let go of, and then let it go is the mind training, and that is the hardest thing you'll ever do, because the ego doesn't want you to do that. So it's going to try and obscure the need for forgiveness. It's going to try and distract you like you're unaware that, there's discomfort going on and that letting go is required. Try and project out onto other people and say, well, the problem's outside of me. It's not me. It's, the other person, or it's the world doing it to me, rather than actually all I need to do is let go of my own stuff, always. So, as he says, if I believe this statement, there would be no problem in completely letting go. Certainty of goal and sure direction. It just as one simple statement, all that I give is given to myself. So when I truly let go, I'm giving myself the gift of freedom that lies beyond all of the stuff I'm holding on to, and that's given to me. Whenever I let go, I give that gift to myself, and then freedom or salvation is mine. Yeah. Anything else to share on that, Sally? Do you want to summarize that? Kind of have already, haven't I? But,
Yeah, it's kind of is what it is, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay, so happy to move on to number 2 then. So what we generally do, Lauren, is just read a bit. I'll ask people to read. So if you I see you in the car, if you want to read.
Yeah. You want me to read number 2?
Yeah. So read it in the original.
Okay, yeah, I don't have the alternate.
Yeah.
Well, you
Actually,
mean like
there's not
I would
much to
just
translate.
alternate the words?
Read it in the alternative. There isn't very much to translate in the sentence.
Okay. Let us consider what you do believe. In the place of this,
Lauren, read it off
go
the
ahead.
screen. Because what I've done
Off the screen. Oh, okay.
What I've done here is I've done it in the first person.
Okay.
What I do believe in place.
I read it off the screen. I was just looking at you guys. Okay. Yeah. So I can put this down.
Yeah. So this is first person. So the idea is it becomes an affirmation, you see? You're saying it in the first person.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Okay.
So this is all about making it more impactful for people.
Let me consider what I do believe in place of this idea. It seems to me that other people are apart from me and able to behave in ways which have no bearing on my thoughts, nor mine on theirs. Therefore, my attitudes have no effect on them, and their appeals for help are not in any way related to my own. I further think that they can sin without affecting my perception of myself, while I can judge their sin and yet remain apart from their condemnation and at peace.
So he's telling us what we believe about forgiveness or letting go.
Paul's shooting firecrackers over here.
So what's he? What I generally ask people to do is just summarize. What's he saying there in summary in that paragraph?
I believe that this is saying that our egoic idea of ourselves is that we are separate from everyone else, and that when we perceive wrong in somebody else, we perceive that this is separate from us and doesn't affect our own atonement, our own. Give me a second. I got a call.
Right. Okay. And then there was one, Elaine. I think it's you. Sally's dropped out. Lauren's dropped out.
Right.
So what's he saying in paragraph 2?
So then I think that I can sin without affecting my perception of myself. So, yeah, we think we can just do as we like and sin and think it's not going to affect ourselves. And while we can judge their sin, and yet it remain apart, so Don't think it's going to affect us.
Yeah, because we think we're separate from people. We think we can judge them and their sin and yet remain apart from that condemnation and at peace. So what the ego is always trying to do is project guilt onto someone else and say, the guilt's not mine, the guilt's yours, because I gave it to you and you're the one who's going to suffer. You're the one who's going to be punished for your guilt. And I'm off the hook. So it's your deal now. You're going to be punished by God and not me. Which is ridiculous, really, but that's consciously what's the mechanism of projection of guilt. So whenever you're blaming someone, whenever there's any kind of attack on anyone, then what you're trying to do is project your guilt onto them and somehow get off that guilt, because we can't handle guilt. It's a horrible feeling. So we try and get rid of it by projecting it onto someone else. But the problem is, the more we do that, the more we actually reinforce that the guilt is there.
Yeah.
So that the projection doesn't work. It just actually reinforces the guilt that we're trying to get rid of. The more we try and get rid of it in that way, the more we confirm that we are guilty. Right? If I give you something, I keep giving you something, I must have a lot of it to give. Not so. So then I'm just reinforcing seeming fact that I am guilty and you're guilty and we're all guilty. And the guilt is what maintains the ego's idea of separation. If I'm guilty, then I must have separated from my source. We want to look at this. Hopefully Google Chrome will be reasonably stable. I'll just show you quickly. Just copy that in case it comes out. So go into descent into hell. So you see it, outlined here quite clearly. The idea of separation and the belief in that creates this ego consciousness belief in separation, which is the thought system, the single thought, which creates a thought system that then leads to an entire universe, physical universe, and this so-called reality. Now, what underpins that thought is the idea I'm an individual self, because I really have separated, and now I'm guilty for it. In order to have my identity, I must have destroyed oneness. See? So that's the source of the guilt. I must have destroyed love, God, oneness, whatever I want to call it, in order to be an individual self. So underpinning my individual identity is this deep mental guilt at the sin of destroying this, pure formless awareness. The only thing that's really of any worth and value. I think I've destroyed that in order to be an individual self. And so that's the whole problem. And now guilt underpins my identity, and guilt underpins everything that follows from this identity. So guilt is at the foundation of the ego, the separate self. And guilt demands punishment. If I think I've really done this terrible thing, terrible crime, then I must be punished, which is a false expectation of punishment appearing real. That's where fear comes from. But now I can't handle that. That guilt and that fear is so overwhelming that I have to do something with it. So the ego says, well, project it onto someone else. And it's invented a whole lot of seemingly other people and other, entities, other sentient beings, on which I can now project my guilt. So now I project that guilt as accusation, blame, complaint, attack of God, my concept of God, which is not a true God, and other humans in separate forms, as a projection of my subconscious guilt to try and get rid of it. So that's why this world is so characterized by attack, why we have so much accusation and blame and attack. You just have to look at the news, and someone is attacking someone else always, and there's some kind of blame going on. And this is the human condition, trying to project our guilt outwards to get rid of it. So indulging in these egoic thoughts and emotions of accusation, blame, complaint, attack, which only reinforces the guilt. Right? So the more that I do that, and the more that I give guilt in the form of blame, the more that I reinforce that I'm guilty, and the ego is strengthened, and my separate identity is strengthened, and that puts me, further into hell, which is the helpless, enervated little life that comes at the very bottom of the ladder. Once I've gone all the way down the ladder through all these iterations and steps, I get to the lowest self-concept possible, that I'm a victim of an unfair, cruel world, and I'm living this helpless, enervated little life of limitation, lack, loneliness, and suffering before I die. And that's the victim consciousness, which the ego sponsors eagerly, because that makes it real. That makes it into a little, limited, separate self, and keeps you far away from your divine nature as pure formless awareness of perfect love, which is in the blue circle. Okay? But fortunately, we can reinterpret all of this. So the Holy Spirit, which is the remembrance or awareness of oneness, can reinterpret all of these false thoughts and ideas, and return our mind back to oneness. And that reinterpretation is the blue arrows. So whatever we perceive, we then reinterpret it, and that changes our perception. And so we go up the blue arrow, back into God or love or perfect oneness, into a state of awareness that is one with us, very peaceful, very blissful. And then we come back down the arrow, and now we get guidance, we get a download from this, and this tells us what to think and say and do. So that, is the metaphysics behind what he's pointing to here in the lesson. And it goes, it's quite deep in some ways, but it's also very simple. He's saying there's only two thought systems. There's the idea of perfect oneness, which is true, and there's the thought of separation, which is just a false belief. And you can't marry those two. They are opposites. They don't reconcile. So there's the split I talked about. The light is love, oneness, pure formless awareness, and the darkness is the idea of separation and everything that comes from it. And we can't mix and marry these thought systems, because they completely contradict. The Holy Spirit's job is just to reinterpret all of the falsity and see that it is false. Really, that's its reinterpretation. This is false, so I'm not going to believe in this. It means I'm not going to act on it. And so we start neutralizing the ego's thought system by just going into here and denying that any of this is real and any of its effects are real. And if you deny all the effects, then you're also denying the cause. Okay, does that make sense? Lauren, any questions on that? We might have covered this in the Art of Letting Go course. I think we probably did, but that would have been a while ago. So just quick...
we covered some of this. So you didn't have this beautiful thing right here.
Didn't I have the diagram at that point?
I don't think so. You did?
Okay. Yeah, it's evolved quite a lot. I've been. I'll
go back and look at my email, because I want to read this.
Yeah. Well, there was I think I had a course manual. I'm not sure if it was included then, but things have moved on quite a lot. So.
I see.
Yeah. Well, we've been working consistently since then. Doing daily sessions, and you work out what works, and to develop really developing a lot of resources and material that can help people to understand it. My mission is to demystify A Course in Miracles and make it very, very doable, very livable, very doable. It's not a great mystery. It's actually quite simple what he's teaching. It's just mind-blowingly simple. It's like, well, it's what Yeshua's saying is there's this or that. There's pure formless awareness of perfect love. That's the truth. And then there's this ego consciousness belief in separation, which which is behind the entire, manifest physical universe. And these realities don't mix. The one is true, the other's not. And ultimately, we have to choose which reality we want to live in and which self we want to be, most importantly. Because the self that we want to be determines the reality that we're going to live in. And, that's the essential teaching. It's very simple. But to separate them out and start recognizing what's what, in a very confused thought system, when the light and the dark have got very jumbled, most people's thinking is very dualistic, and there's not that clarity. There's a lot of ambiguity. This is what A Course in Miracles is designed to do. So you can separate them out. You can see very clearly what's true and what's false, and then you can choose accordingly. Once you understand clearly what's true, and it's become obvious to you, then the only logical choice is for the truth. And then you choose that clearly, and you in order to choose that, you must deny the illusion, which is false. And so that's where the letting go comes in. You must deny it by letting it go and not thinking those thoughts and not feeling those emotions. And then it simply ceases to have existence. So you deny it out of existence. Does that make sense? I think you're muted. So let's go back to our. So
I said it makes sense. It makes all the sense.
Yeah. All of these lessons, you see, what we try and do is track it back to the metaphysics and relate it back to this high-level thought system. So I refer to this diagram quite a lot because this has got the whole thought system laid out and how we also got where we are. How did we become seemingly individual human bodies living in this, honestly pretty unfair, cruel world? You see what happens in this world a lot. How did that happen? Well, this explains it. It's a descent into hell step by step. We made one bad decision after another. We came down the ladder of separation, and at every step, there's these dotted lines, which is really just symbolic of a kind of amnesia that comes over the mind. And so you forget the step you took previously. And now, guilt becomes real, the next step. And then fear becomes real. And you forget all the steps that you took to get there. And you've long forgotten pure formless awareness of perfect love because all these steps have come in to obscure it. So, the diagram's just there to make it more explicit.
I found it in my email, and it's way less on the page than that.
Yeah, it was a bit simpler in those days.
Yeah.
So I've added a bit to it.
No worries.
Arrows. I don't think I had the blue arrows. So the blue arrows are really saying, this is your way out. Okay, so it's the descent into hell, but the Holy Spirit is the ability in your mind to reinterpret the dream, to take whatever is seemingly happening in the red stuff, in the red boxes and the red arrows, the ego's nightmare of separation, and look on it differently, perceive it differently, and say, okay, but I understand that none of this is really true and none of it is real. That's the reinterpretation that the Holy Spirit helps you to do. And that's then symbolized by the blue arrows, which again are double-sided arrows. So you can go back into this pure formless awareness. You can find something called the peace of God that surpasses all understanding. You can find that in your own mind through this practice of forgiveness or letting go. And then you can return your mind into the dream and you can look at the situation again. But now you see it from different eyes because you're seeing it from this awareness. And what is really seeing, what is really perceiving is awareness. The question is it the awareness of the ego, the idea of being a separate self, or is it the awareness of the Holy Spirit, the idea of being oneness? And those awarenesses don't agree. They will never agree. They are opposite. So you must choose which awareness you want to be in. And the choice, once you understand the choice clearly, It's obvious. There's only one choice. Why would you choose an illusion? Why would you choose what's false? What's actually ultimately not going to work when you have the truth? No good reason for that at all. But until you have this kind of education and mind training, you don't know that. You're in the dark, you're confused, you don't know the difference. Most people, they might have heard of the ego, but they don't really know what the ego means, what it is, and they don't know how to distinguish it from their right mind, the Holy Spirit. They don't know the difference. So if you don't know the difference, then you're going to be confused, because you're going to get voices speaking to you, and you're not going to know which is true and which is not. And then the ego masquerades as the true voice, and then you start following that, and that's just leading you down the garden path, more into the hell, more into the sense of being a helpless, enervated little life, because that's all it wants to weaken you and make you seemingly a separate entity. That's all the ego is designed to do, is make you seemingly separate from this blue circle, which is God, love, oneness, or pure formless awareness. Okay, so any comments, questions on that, on the metaphysics? Well, we return to it, many times. So if you don't fully get it straight away, that's absolutely fine. It needs a lot of repetition and then in different contexts, in different lessons, we bring it and you go, oh, okay, I see something more in the diagram there. It reveals more of itself as you journey with this and we use it. So that's, one of the advantages of doing like a daily session is just like this ongoing drip feed teaching, so that you can make more progress in, say, 3 weeks than you might have made in a year previously, because it's every day and you're just building. Every day you build on the insights you had from the yesterday. Okay, so moving on to number 3 then. Elaine, if you can read that one. When you forgive a sin, read that in alternative.
When I forgive a sin, there is no gain to me directly. I give charity to one unworthy, merely to point out that I am better, on a higher plane than the person whom I forgive. They have not earned my charitable tolerance, which I bestow on someone unworthy of the gift, because their sins have lowered them beneath a true equality with me. They have no claim on my forgiveness. It holds out a gift to them, but hardly to myself.
Okay, so remember, he's stating what we might believe about forgiveness, these misperceptions about it, and just laying them all out and saying this is what you probably believe. So what's he saying here in summary, this paragraph?
Well, when we forgive a sin, there's no gain to us directly.
So remember, he's saying this is our belief. This isn't the truth. He's saying this is what we believe if we're in the ego's thought system.
Yeah. And we think we're higher just because we've forgiven somebody who we feel has been unworthy of the gift. And when we feel there's no claim for the forgiveness. Yeah, you'll explain it better.
Yeah, well, I think you did a reasonable job there. So we think that forgiveness is about holding out a gift to someone else. It's given to them. It has no real benefit to us, and that's just not true. There's not a real understanding of what forgiveness is. So forgiveness from that point of view is, well, I'm being very gracious. I might think that I'm quite holy, holier than thou type thing, and I've forgiven you, you sinner who've done this thing. That kind of forgiveness, maybe some overtly religious people might try that. But really, they're not forgiving you at all. They're actually judging you as somehow unworthy of forgiveness. That they're superior to you because they're so holier, holy, and they're good Christians, and you're not. And so they're missing the point of what forgiveness offers them, because they think it's just, well, I forgive because I should forgive, and I'm doing it for the other person. But actually, you're doing it for you. Always, forgiveness is for you. And notice that it's all about inequality. So the ego's use of forgiveness will always foster inequality. So I can't be equal to the other person, because then I would be one with them. Then I wouldn't have a separate identity. So I have to create a separate identity, which means I can't be the same as them. I can't be equal to them. And the ego doesn't really mind too much whether that identity is seemingly better or worse than someone else. As long as there's separate souls going on, and there's inequality, it's happy. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
Okay, so number 4, if you want to read that one first. Lauren?
You said read number 4?
Yeah, you can read it in the alternative, because not much to translate. I've kept forgiveness rather than translating into letting go, because we're talking about what I believe about it. And most people could believe these things about forgiveness, but not necessarily about letting go. So hence we're using the term forgiveness, because it is one of those misunderstood terms. If you asked, I can guarantee if you did a survey and you asked 20 different people to describe what they believe forgiveness is, you'd probably get 20 different answers.
Therefore, forgiveness. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, carry on.
Therefore, forgiveness is basically unsound, a charitable whim, benevolent yet undeserved, a gift bestowed at times, at other times withheld. Unmerited withholding it or is just, nor is it fair that I should suffer when it is withheld. The sin that I forgive is not my own. Someone apart from me committed it. And if I then am gracious to them by giving them what they do not deserve, the gift is no more mine than was their sin.
Okay, so what's he saying there? Summary.
That forgiveness is something that it kind of still sounds like it's just a judgment. It's something that I give out for someone who I believe is undeserving. And that even when I give out that sin, we in Christendom we say that forgiveness comes from God, so it comes from outside of ourselves. So the gift isn't mine and the sin isn't mine either. I'm just bestowing, like some great gift upon somebody who doesn't deserve it. And, and somewhere in there, it sounds like I think I must be undeserving too. No, it's just real judgy.
Yeah, really judgy, and really designed to foster superiority. So what I'd call is not mock forgiveness. This is pseudo forgiveness. There's 3 kinds of forgiveness. The pseudo forgiveness It's like I'm pretending to forgive, but I'm not really forgiving. I'm actually quite self-righteous. So this often happens, sadly, in very very sort of religious people. They might be like really church going, like, no, I'm very pious and I'm doing all the right thing, and you sinner, you're doing all the wrong things, and so I must forgive you because I'm supposed to, but actually I'm trying to elevate myself above you and say I'm I'm so holy and you're so kind of sinful, and I forgive you, you miserable sinner type thing. Which isn't forgiveness at all, because you've actually made their sin real in your mind. You see, so you've judged the error as a sin, which means that it's an error that's made permanent in your perception and real and punishable. That's the definition of sin. And so that's not forgiveness at all. It's a pseudo forgiveness, just masquerading as forgiveness, but actually just judgment in disguise and designed to perpetuate the thought system of separation. There's no healing, there's no joining possible if you think the other person is somehow separate from you, and that you're giving them this this gift because you're so holier than thou. You're giving them a great gift from your superior position of being somehow more holy, more pious, and you separate them out from you in your awareness. You're not one with them, then they're seemingly below you. So there's no oneness there. There's no joining. And true forgiveness, radical forgiveness, should join minds together rather than separate them. Okay, you want to add anything to that? What else is he saying? Or any comments or questions about number 4? Hi, Christine. Welcome.
Hi.
Okay, so number 4. I'm going to move on to number 5 then. So let's ask Christine. Christine, if you can read it in the original and then the alternative. There's a bit to translate in this one.
If this be true, forgiveness has no grounds on which to rest dependably and sure. If this be true, letting go has no grounds on which to rest dependably and sure.
So this be true, if I is the previous sentence. If I then am gracious to them by giving them what they do not deserve, the gift is no more mine than was their sin. So that's statement. He's saying if this is true, that the gift is really no more mine than was their sin. I'm really separate from them. Then here are the consequences of that being true. Letting go has no grounds on which to rest dependably and sure. Maybe we'll keep that as because we've been using the term forgiveness. We'll call it forgiveness. I'm just highlighting some misconceptions about what forgiveness is. Okay, number 2.
It is, sorry, my voice is not very strong. It is an eccentricity in which you sometimes choose to give indulgently an undeserved reprieve. The same. 3 is also the same. Yet it remains my right to let the sinners not escape the justified repayment for their sins.
Yeah, so what he's talking about here is a pseudo forgiveness. He also calls it forgiveness to destroy in the Song of Prayer. It's in one of those supplements, either the Song of Prayer or the Psychotherapy Purpose, Processes and Practices. He calls it forgiveness to destroy. So it's not really forgiveness, it's a pseudo forgiveness, where actually you're making the sin real, and that, there will be a repayment for that sin. And, the sinners must be punished and must suffer and must die. Well, all of that is the thought system of separation, lack, scarcity, loss, sacrifice, death. That's not the truth of who you are. Okay, we carry on.
For think you the Lord of heaven would allow the world's salvation to depend on this? Do I really think the source of pure formless awareness would allow the world's freedom to depend on this?
Yeah, so Lord of Heaven, again, translated kind of translation that's helpful for people. So Lord of Heaven sounds a bit over the top for a lot of people. The idea of Lord, that's very old style Christian, the Lord this, the Lord that. A lot of people just turns them stone cold and they run a mile. And instead we say, well, it's the source. The Lord is the source. Heaven is pure formless awareness. So the source of this state of pure formless awareness will allow the world's freedom to depend on this. Do you really think that's possible?
No. If
No.
my freedom rested on such a whim, would his care for me not be small indeed?
So you see, he's highlighting just how impossible this thought system is. Your pseudo forgiveness clearly is not forgiveness at all. It's not letting go. It's not coming from source. It's just designed to maintain the separation. You want to summarize that paragraph? What's he saying there in summary?
Yeah, it seems it's not genuine forgiveness. It's just it's just done for the sake of letting go of a difficult situation.
Well, it's actually done to confirm your separation from the other person and your superiority over the other person, you see?
Yes.
So it's actually self-righteous. And I call it pseudo-forgiveness. And Yeshua actually calls it forgiveness to destroy in one of the supplements. It's actually destroying that relationship, the holy relationship, and would ultimately destroy the person, because condemnation and death, go hand in hand, all in the name of, well, I'm now, a separate person from you because I'm superior in my, piety and my holiness. And, unfortunately, particularly strongly religious people are prone to this. Then somehow I'm above you. And, I can judge you as some kind of sinner and think that I can get away with that. And that actually you're the sinner and you're the one who's going to be punished, and I'm off scot-free, and, I'm resting holier than thou. I'm going to heaven and you're not. Well, sorry for you. If you're judging someone from that basis, then you're very far away from heaven. Pure formless awareness is a synonym for heaven. You're very far away from that state, and you're resting, and you're believing in the ego.
So you're not really forgiving.
No, it's not forgiveness at all. No,
Walk away.
it's a pseudo forgiveness. That's false forgiveness. That's forgiveness to destroy. That's just about maintaining the ego and its thought system of guilt and sin and condemnation. And so, you might call it forgiveness, but it's got nothing to do with genuine radical forgiveness at all. And so it's a form of forgiveness. It's pretty childish, really, but it's a form that's still practiced in the world, and there are people who think that they're forgiving in that sort of self-righteous condemnatory way. Oh, you poor sinner, I'll pray for you. Really? Okay. Why don't you pray for yourself to perceive me correctly? The true prayer is, let me perceive this correctly. That's the true prayer. Asking the Holy Spirit for help to perceive it correctly. Not, oh, I'll pray for you, miserable sinner, that one day you'll be saved. But actually in the prayer, what are you doing? You're making yourself separate from the other person in your perception. And forgiveness, true forgiveness, should always unify. That's its purpose. Should unify people, not separate them.
What are the other two forms of forgiveness?
Sorry, Lauren?
What are the other two forms of forgiveness?
So, good question. There's what I call mock forgiveness or halfway forgiveness, which is kind of it's compassion, really. It's saying, okay, so this is really
I feel sorry for you.
Yeah, kind of. This has really happened, so it still makes it real, but I see that maybe you've done whatever you've done because of your past, your conditioning, your programming. Let's say, take a example of abuse or something. Someone is physically or sexually abusing someone else, and then usually always that person is damaged themselves. They're not abusing just out of nowhere. They've got a history. They become an abuser because they were abused as a child. So a sort of halfway forgiveness would say, well, I can kind of understand that you've done that because you damaged yourself, because you've had a really tough childhood, because you were abused. And so there's a softening of my judgment there. And I don't judge you and condemn you as much, you see? So it's kind of halfway. It's better than the outright condemnation of the pseudo forgiveness. But it's still making it real in your perception. Yeah. That's the problem. So it's not radical forgiveness, which is the third kind. Radical forgiveness is just letting go of any negative thought and emotion in your own mind. That's all. So letting that, whatever it is, I've got to drop that thought and emotion. It's got nothing to do with the other person and what they've said or done or haven't said or done. It's got everything to do with my thoughts and emotions about that person and what they've said or done or haven't said or done, you see? So
in the radical, oh, I'm sorry. I was asking a question. I apologize.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
No, to ask the question. What?
So in this concept, is there not, I don't want to use a double negative. In the concept of radical forgiveness, isn't that person one with me? That's not a separate person. That's a concept of myself.
Yeah. So radical forgiveness says there is nothing to separate us. Right? There's not one iota, not one thought of separation, not one bit of fear or anger or any of the emotions the ego likes to dwell in that will separate you from me in my perception. Yeah. So radical forgiveness collapses all the ideas of separation and restores my mind to the awareness of oneness. That I know in my mind, in my heart, that I am one with you. I'm not separate from you in any way, shape, or form. And that's what a radical forgiveness, which goes to the root. Remember, radical means root. It comes from the Latin word root, radix. So it's going to the very root of the problem. And the root of the problem, if you go back to this diagram, is the idea of separation. Now, that's the only problem. We've got one tiny mad idea in our minds that's the root cause of all of the problems in this world. Whatever the problem is that you're experiencing, it goes back to that idea. Okay, so that's the root. So you have to root that out. You have to really see that that's the problem. And it's the problem that exists in your own mind. It doesn't exist anywhere else. Other people seem to have the same idea. In the end, you can only take responsibility in your own mind. Okay, the sole responsibility of the miracle worker, he says, is to accept at-one-ment for himself or herself. So you must accept that only oneness is true. That one-ment means that only oneness is true and separation is not true. You must accept that for yourself in every situation. So whenever you're presented with a form of separation, all the problems of this world, however they show up, it's all just forms of the same problem. You must then accept that this problem isn't true. This problem is unreal because only oneness is true. And that simple acceptance is the shift from the ego's thought system into the Holy Spirit. So that's the reinterpretation of the ego's dream by the Holy Spirit. And it just requires an awareness that this isn't true. None of this is true. Whatever's being shown to me in a dream world based on a false idea of separation must be untrue because the idea behind all of it is untrue. Yeah, that's the simple logic of the Holy Spirit. So I can't believe in any of this then because it's all untrue. Therefore, in any situation, I don't get sucked in by the appearances of separation. And I remind myself that only oneness is true, that only this pure formless awareness of perfect love, we call God, only that is true. And that's the only reinterpretation you need to make in every situation. But it's such a radical reinterpretation because it goes completely against what the ego is teaching. There's no reconciliation of this. You can't have a little bit of separation and also have perfect oneness, you see. It's one or the other. So you have to deny the separation entirely in order to accept oneness entirely. And that's what the radical forgiveness helps you do. So that's the third kind. And that's the only kind that's really going to work. You know, the pseudo-forgiveness is just a waste of time. It's not going to get you anywhere. The mock forgiveness or the halfway forgiveness is kind of a halfway house. It's a stepping stone. It can help to start doing that kind of softening of your judgment. But in the end, it's still a trap because you still get caught in, well, how do I forgive it if it's really happened? You see, that's where it leaves you. And you might know people who've really struggled with forgiveness. Because they're like, well, how do I let it go? How do I forgive this person if it's really happened? Okay, I can understand, yes, you've had a tough childhood and you might be behaving this way because you were abused as a child, and I can tell them, but it still happened and it still hurt me. You see, so it softened my judgment a little bit, but it's still, there's a wound still, because I've made it real in my mind. And the only thing that's going to erase it all is radical forgiveness that just reminds you of the simple truth that nothing in the dream is real. So your entire story, your entire life history, if you want to look at it on the timeline, I've got another diagram here, which you probably haven't seen because this is also new. All of this timeline that I've invented for myself is unreal. So all of my dramas, all of these traumas that I may have had, all of my past conditioning, none of that's true. None of it's real. Radical forgiveness says none of that is true. Everything in the red, whatever's red in the diagrams, is false, right? Because that comes from the false idea of separation, which is the ego, and so none of it is at all true. And my job, if I'm going to be the miracle worker, is just in the moment when something's happened. Let's say I have another trauma. I've lost my job. in the moment, my true job is to go into this awareness and remind myself that only this is true. So I seem to have lost my job in the world, but that's really an illusion. In truth, I'm still safe in God. I'm still just pure formless awareness of perfect love. That's all I am. Now I restore my mind to that awareness, and then having been there for maybe a few minutes, I come back and I look at the situation again, and guess what? My perception has changed. I no longer perceive it in the same way. I'm not as fearful because I've reminded myself that I'm still okay. Actually, nothing's really changed. My true nature, my true being hasn't changed one iota because I lost my job on the level of form in an illusion. It's unaffected. And so it restores my mind to a sense of peace and calm and certainty, which has huge value in this world, because then I perceive the situation differently, and I will be thinking different thoughts about it, making different decisions about it, taking different actions, and that allows my dream to flow forward on the timeline in a different way, because I've changed my mind. So instead of being freaked out about losing my job and being in all this fear about not having an income, and what am I going to do, and I might starve, and I can't pay my rent, and blah 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 blah, on and on the ego goes with fear, I go, oh well, actually this liberates me. I didn't like the job anyway. I'm now free to pursue something else. Now I'm open and I'm free. My time's available, and I can be an agent of the Holy Spirit. Okay, so what do you want me to do then? And this might liberate you into finding your higher purpose and your true calling in life. And often that's the case. The adversity is just really just a phase shift to help you to find your true calling and your purpose. So then, from the Holy Spirit's point of view, it's a very good thing. You're not fearful anymore. You're going, actually, I'm quite excited that I've lost my job, and I'm open to possibilities. And as soon as you make that internal shift, then guess what? New possibilities come in. And things get shown to you, and things get revealed, and you flow forward in the dream in a flowing, unfearful way, and miracles start happening, and you start getting directed now into your true path. And that's what that's what the miracle is. And so there's a huge benefit of being able to do this kind of forgiveness in whatever situation you're facing, because it restores your mind to your right mind. And in your right mind, you can now listen to the guidance of the Holy Spirit, and it can tell you what to do. And it can guide you in your dream much better than the ego can. And it's guiding you in a way that's not emphasizing the dream. It's guiding you back to truth. It's guiding you back home. That's its only job, to guide you ultimately to return back your full awareness into this awareness. So the entire ego is undone. And that's what the objective is. It's not there to give you a good job in the world of form and make money and buy lots of stuff you don't really need. No, that's not what it's about. It's about returning your mind back to its true source. And that's the only purpose of this world. And so if you listen to it, that's what it will do, because that's its task. That's what it's designed to do. And the only thing that's going to do that is radical forgiveness. Is this ability to completely let go of the entire dream. So all of the past conditioning, everything in my past is gone. It's not even there. Can you show me the past? Show me the past. You can't, can you? No one can show the past, because the past is just a memory. It's purely conceptual. It's in your mind. So then, what the Holy Spirit is teaching us is that it's not real. It's just memories of past experiences in a dream world, and the dream's not real. So now you got a memory, which is an illusion of another illusion, which was the experience that never really happened. Right? So it's twice removed from reality. It's a dream within a dream, and we wonder why we get confused when our mind is thinking, dream within a dream. And actually, the truth is, it's only ever now, and it's only ever just this awareness. This is the only truth. This awareness is always there. It's ever present. It's never gone away. And that's the only, true awareness. And everything else is false. Everything in the red is false because it's based on one false idea, the idea that you can be separate from this awareness, your true awareness. It's so simple, really, isn't it? Such a simple teaching. But it's radical because it denies the entire world. You have to deny your past, your future, your story, your identity in this world. All of it's got to go in your mind. You can't hold on to any of it in order to restore your mind fully into this pure formless awareness of perfect love. It's pure formless awareness. In other words, there is no form in it. There's no form identity. That's been undone. There's just a pure awareness that is what it is. So they say God is. I am that I am. These words try and capture the essence of what this is. And words can't really do it justice, but they just point it. I am that I am. It was the name of God given to Moses in Exodus, oldest name of God in the Bible. Is trying to capture that, trying to say it just is what it is. And you can't really, as soon as you start trying to embellish that and define it and name it, then you lose the essence of it. Because the essence of it is that it's your own true awareness. And there's nothing really else than that. That awareness is the only truth, and everything else is false. And the entire spiritual journey is just the realization of that awareness as your awareness. That's the mystical merging of the Father with the Son. You understand that this pure formless awareness of perfect love is the same, identical to my awareness. That is my awareness. So I and the Father are one. The source, that pure formless awareness of perfect love, and my awareness are the same. There's no difference. I am it and it is me. And that's the merging into the one awareness, a singular awareness that lies beyond all dreams of separation. And that's where I'm going. That's the ultimate destiny of me and every other human being and every sentient being in the universe, because the truth is true. And in the end, we will all return back to that single awareness from which we all came. That's the Alpha and the Omega. That's the beginning and the end. We started there, we've gone into a dream world, but we will eventually return there. And the mechanism of returning there is this forgiveness, radical forgiveness, or letting go of every thought and emotion that blocks this awareness. That's all we have to do. You can let go of any thoughts and emotion that blocks this blue awareness, then you're back in this awareness, because there's nothing to block it. There's no limit then on that awareness, nothing to block it. So letting go becomes the key. You must let go of any blocks to this awareness in order to be back in the awareness, which is completely logical. And that's all that radical forgiveness is. That's all that it is. Okay. Back to number 5. So any comments, questions, thoughts on number 5? Christine, you want to summarize that briefly?
So,
What's he saying
you
there?
said it all in the radical forgiveness. It's an all or nothing thing.
Yeah.
You can't do it half-heartedly.
Yeah.
Get rid of any emotion that separates you from another. Any thought, you just got to drop it all and genuinely let go.
And any idea of sin, any idea that you or anyone else is sinful, that there's some kind of punishment that's required, any sort of condemnation that you notice. And if you're honest with yourself, you'll notice that these thoughts come up. You think of people and in your perception, they're not innocent. You see them as somehow wrong. and they've done something wrong, and then there's a kind of if there's any kind of resentment or anger, that's sin, and that's projection of guilt, and that blocks your awareness of pure formless awareness. You will never enter into pure formless awareness of perfect love with those ideas and still in your mind. So it's very simple, but to actually get rid of those thoughts is a lifetime's work. To really collapse all belief in sin and guilt is to collapse the belief in separation and just you don't see it anymore. Even though it may seem to be happening, doesn't mean everyone's suddenly going to become enlightened and is going to behave perfectly. No, but you don't see it anymore. You don't perceive it that way. So it doesn't affect you anymore. Because that's all you can control is your own perception of things. So that's, the hallmark of enlightened beings. They have absolute control of their minds, and they do not misperceive. They don't misperceive sin and guilt and fear and attack and hatred in the world, even under intense temptation. So, Yeshua's crucifixion was a master teaching in radical forgiveness, because he was being on the level of form. He was betrayed. He was arrested. He was flogged. A crown of thorns put on him. They made him carry his cross. I mean, it's a brutal, harsh treatment of any human being for just teaching the truth. Yeah, and he'd healed many people. He did go into the temple and overturn their tables, which is probably why they did it. But still, no one deserves that. For something so trivial. And yet he forgave. One of the most famous lines, which you quoted, to avert your own punishment, was "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." The saying, even in that extreme temptation to judge and condemn, I won't, because they just don't know what they're doing. They're confused. So, how can I judge people?
One's deepest desire has to be to believe that you're part of that one awareness. The at-one-ment, it has to be what you sincerely want to identify with. Because in your tiny man idea, you're not going to change anyone or any circumstance. It's only through the Holy Spirit that miracles can happen.
Yeah.
And you have to revert to that and not to your tiny little ego that thinks it can change a sinner into a saint.
Yeah, exactly. And it comes down to letting go of your own stuff. Remember, the sole responsibility of the miracle worker is to accept the at-one-ment for himself or herself.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do.
Which is very hard.
Yeah.
I am love, I am innocent is what I'm working on, but I still don't truly believe it.
Yeah. Because it's this belief in sin and guilt is deep-seated in us. And Yeshua knows our deep-seated. It's okay, so every lesson we're going to look at this, and we're going to look at it again, and he's going to help you to see it, and he gives you different angles on it. Today's a different, slightly different take on it, and he's saying, okay, so this is what you might believe about forgiveness. But is this really true? Do you really think this is the truth that you believe? So what he's trying to do is eliminate all of the falsity out of our thinking. Okay, so you got a misconception of forgiveness. You think that's gonna, that's real forgiveness and it's gonna work. But if it's anything like what he's describing, it's not going to work. It's pseudo forgiveness. It's not going to work. It's going to maintain the separation in your mind, and this will not awaken you. This is not freedom. This will keep you in the bondage of the ego forever. As long as you believe this, well, you come back, and you have another life, and you try again. You try and do this, false forgiveness again, and it doesn't work, and you come back again. You're caught on the cycle of birth and death, the wheel of birth and death, they call it in Buddhism. And until you change your mind fundamentally, that wheel will continue. You will just come back and you'll repeat it over and over and over again. which is what we've been doing for a very, very long time. You know, this is not your first time here. You know that. We've all been here many times. And we haven't got it yet. That's why we're still here. You know, these ideas are absolutely the crux of the matter. Which is why this course is so powerful, because he's giving us the teachings that will free our minds. How does he know that? Because these are the teachings that freed his mind. He knows that this works because he's done it. So that's why we can trust in him, because he's walked the path before us, and he's used these ideas to awaken himself from a dream and free his mind entirely from needing to be human and coming back into this, you know, crazy world of separation. He's transcended it all. And he's saying, well, I did it, so you can do it too. I'll show you how. Well, that's really helpful, isn't it? To have this kind of quality of teaching from the ultimate spiritual master, in my humble opinion, who's attained full at-one-ment, and he's now giving you a detailed, disciplined course to say, this is how I did it. Yeah, I'm going to tell you exactly. I'm not going to hold anything back. Tell you exactly. It's no secrets, no mysteries. I'm just going to tell you straight. This is exactly how I did it. These are the principles. And I'm going to give you a course which is going to systematically train you in this way of thinking through 365 lessons that you can do every day. I mean, wow, that's incredible. We're so lucky to have that. First lifetime you've ever had it available, because the course was only produced in 1973. Interesting, that was the year of my birth. So I was born at the same time as the course was born into the world. So very lucky to, you know, have the opportunity to study it in this lifetime and make the most of it. Okay, well, this truth hasn't been available before in this clear form. Been around, I mean, Advaita, Vedanta, Yeshua's teachings been around for 2,000 years, but it got obscured. You know, it wasn't clear because, you know, people get scared of it, and so then people start misinterpreting, and they start doing this kind of pseudo forgiveness or mock or halfway forgiveness, and not really forgiven. And so the message gets distorted over time. And so now he's given us, you know, from him direct through a channel, Helen Schuckman, who scribed it, and it's directly his words, so that you can really you know, learn from it directly from a spiritual master. So in many ways we're luckier now than, let's say, the disciples 2,000 years ago who actually knew him, because they didn't have a course like this. He hadn't written it out there. They didn't have a written instruction manual with daily practices, and that didn't exist then. They just had what he said, you know, so they must have had, you know, his public teachings and then maybe private sessions with him. And I think a lot of the time they didn't really understand. As he said, you know, the disciples didn't really get a lot of what I taught because they hadn't done the mind training that he had. And so they didn't understand on the same level as he understood, which is, you know, then accounts for a lot of the misinterpretations that have come into Christianity subsequently. Because if the disciples who went out and taught it to start with didn't even get it, then how would you expect, you know, from that start of not full understanding, how would you expect that the religion that developed ultimately 300 years later is actually going to be anything vaguely close to what Yeshua taught? Clearly it's not. So this course is his correction. He's saying, okay, my teachings got way distorted. Right, I'm going to correct all of this in my own words. I'm going to tell you exactly what I meant, and I'm going to tell you exactly how to do this. This is what he's doing. Very, very precise language. It's very unequivocal. It's unambiguous. So you can't equivocate between the ego and the Holy Spirit if you read this course. It becomes very clear which is which. And that's, you know, the only distinction we have to make in order to make clear choices between the two thought systems. When we make the choice for the light rather than the dark, that's the choice to let go. That's where the forgiveness comes in, to let go of the darkness. If we let go of the darkness, the belief in separation in all of its forms, then we must be accepting the light. So Yeshua's just saying, don't worry about accepting the light, just focus on letting go of the darkness. That's his approach. And so that's why the focus is on, let's identify the ego and then let's let it go as it comes up into our awareness. And that's the whole approach of the course, which he knows will ultimately lead you back through that reinterpretation into this pure formless awareness of perfect love as your own awareness, as your only awareness. If there's nothing else, you've let go of everything else, then this was what will remain. And that's then the only reality for you. So then you've gone from duality, seemingly two different thought systems, two different ideas that are in contradiction, to one, in which there's no contradiction. Okay? Happy with that?
Yes.
So number 6, then, you do not understand forgiveness. I'm actually going to keep that as forgiveness, because we're talking about concepts, so we'll keep it. So I think it's Lauren again. Lauren, can you read number 6 for us in the alternative?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
I do not understand forgiveness. As I perceive it, it is just a check upon overt attack without requiring correction in the mind. It cannot give me peace as I perceive it. It is not a means for my release from which I perceive in someone other than myself. I'm going to read that again. I didn't understand it. It is not a means for release from what I perceive in someone other than myself. Okay. It has no power to restore my unity with them to my awareness. It is not what pure formless awareness of perfect love intended it to be for me.
So pure formless awareness of perfect love is God. You know, that's our alternative name for God. So it's an awareness, a pure formless awareness of a perfect love that is the ultimate source. So again, he's highlighting here just our illusions about forgiveness. I don't believe it can bring me peace. I don't think it's going to release me completely and free me and bring me into peace. And it's not going to restore my unity with another person to my awareness. It's not what pure formless awareness of perfect love intended it to be for me. So this kind of forgiveness is a denial. It's not forgiveness at all. It's a denial of forgiveness. Pseudo forgiveness, which is what he's talking about, is actually completely the opposite of forgiveness. Don't even call it forgiveness. It's just judgment and condemnation in a very thin disguise. That's clearly not going to work. It's not going to bring you back into an awareness of your source, of pure formless awareness of perfect love. It's not going to restore your unity with your companions. You remain a separate self, which is of course what the ego wants, that you remain separate forever, and you never reunite your mind with your source, because if you do, that's it for the ego. Game over. No more ego thoughts and emotions. No more ego. No more world. So it's got this huge investment in perpetuating these illusions to enslave you into its false identity and its false world. Okay. Anything else you want to share about that paragraph? Any questions?
Yeah, I mean, you said it all there. I mean, forgiveness is something that I've focused on for years, and I love the way that this alternative is set up. And yeah, and it just, when truth hits you, that's why I had to reread number 4 again in part 6, because I was like, because it hit me in a certain way. I don't know how to explain it, but
you just feel it.
Yeah.
And a need for a release from what I perceive in someone other than myself. So this is the delusion. I think it's not going to release me. I think that this person is other than me. And
because a delusion that I've held myself is why it it's like something that it kind of got released. That delusion right there in that sentence. That's why I was like, wait. Let me read it again.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
So his methodology is to highlight our delusions, and as soon as you see it, then it's like, oh, I get it. Okay, I get that that's not true, because he's just pointed it out, and so then I can let it go. So he's doing that all through the course.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah,
Definitely.
right there. And then you feel a shift, and that's the miracle right there. That's a little miracle, because you just had a little
Yeah.
shift in your perception, you felt a release, and you're like, okay, so now something's changed. I'm not exactly the same as I was, before I came on the call. There's a shift, and that's taken me in the right direction. It's in a positive direction, and so one shift can lead to another, and those little miracles form an interlocking chain of forgiveness, as he calls it, which will take you all the way back to God. And that's the at-one-ment process. Get these, as you get these insights.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank yourself. Thank the Holy Spirit for bringing you here. Welcome back. So don't go away for another 2 years. Stick around.
Right.
Find that there's a lot of every day we do this, and every day if you join, there's undoing. You're just undoing another part of the ego. So someone like Sally, you met her briefly. I've seen like enormous growth. She's grown from, when did she join? End of April last year. So it's like 14 months about, almost. Just huge shifts and growth that I've seen, because she's just done it regularly. She's been like, 3-4 times a week. She's joining the calls. She's doing 2-3 hours. I think she left because she likes to go to bed at about 9 o'clock. So, and she probably had a dog walk to do. But she's joining, regularly, and the awakening that starts to happen is that, you just see it. It's extraordinary. People start waking up, and she's having Kundalini energy flowing, and mystic experiences. Lots of deep realizations, peace, and I've seen her, in the sessions. She's like, oh, I just got something else. Oh, I just, so like every session, there's like some shift, some little awakening, and then you string all of that together over 14 months, and suddenly you've got major awakening happening, and she's really waking up to the truth of who she is, which is the whole point of our lives. So that's what the course can do if you do it correctly. I think too many people, they read it and they don't really get it, and some of the ideas are helpful on some level, but they don't really get it. They're not penetrating deeper. They don't study it every day. The language puts them off, and so the effect is limited, and they're not really awakened. If you really take it and you do it, as we do it in this program, then you will awaken. So it's inevitable, because that's what it's designed to do. So then I guess my question is, are you up for it? That's all. Are you ready?
Yeah.
If you're ready to awaken fully, like go the whole way, then this is the place to be. If you want to deny that, delay it, procrastinate, then then it's not the place to be. Because if you join these sessions regularly, you will awaken. That's a guarantee. You can't do this kind of work and not awaken. And the way we do it with the alternatives and reading it like this, it's powerful. You start to get shifts, in every lesson, every session. And we do the text as well. So sometimes we go on for 4 or 5 hours. Not that you have to do 4 or 5 hours, but if you can, it's powerful. Like a 4 or 5 hour undoing of the ego session. You start putting in those kinds of sessions regularly. It's really starting to break down the very stubborn, resistant, persistent ego. Okay, so let's go into number 7 then. Happy with number 6? Any questions about that? So number 7, Elaine, you can read that for us.
The alternative.
There's a bit to translate there. So But yeah, read an alternative. It's fine.
Not having given, it is the gift it asks of me. I
It-
cannot reckon.
Not having given it the gift it asks of me. So the original was him, the gift he asks of me. Yeah, so it is pure formless awareness of perfect love.
I cannot recognize its gifts and think it has not given them to me. Yet would it ask me for a gift unless it was for me? Could it be satisfied with empty gestures and evaluate such petty gifts as worthy of its extension? Freedom is a better gift than this, and true letting go, as the means by which it is attained, must heal the mind that gives, for giving is receiving. What remains as unreceived has not been given, but what has been given must have been received.
Okay, so what's he saying in this one?
It's just all about the giving and receiving. Well, in short, well, about the empty gestures and evaluate such petty gifts. Yeah, freedom is a better gift. Well, you've just got to truly let go and I'm sort of trying to put it in a simple fashion because it's sort of
Well, as I give it, I receive it. If I truly let go,
yeah,
I'm giving myself a gift. And
yeah,
as
yeah,
I
yeah,
give it, I
yeah.
receive it. I'm giving myself the gift of freedom when I let go. It's as
Yeah,
simple as that.
that's better. Yeah,
You know? This is why letting go, I forgive you. Instead of I forgive you, no, I let go of my negative thoughts and emotions about you. See, it's a different focus, isn't it? The ones like I've got to somehow forgive you are separate from me. Truth is that's impossible. I can't really, if I think I'm separate from you, I can't ever forgive you. But I can let go of my negative thoughts and emotions about you, which remove the blocks to the awareness that we are actually one. If I don't have those thoughts and emotions, then there's nothing to separate me from you and my awareness.
yeah,
So then I perceive naturally that we are one, and I feel that unity. It's not just thoughts, it's a feeling of, yeah, there's wholeness, there's oneness, there's unity. That's the unconditional love that this course is speaking of. That this ultimately will lead you to. What remains is
That thought right there makes me think of something like, when you see the person begging on the corner, when I give to them, I give to myself, even, not even just forgiveness, but the physical things as well, on the egoic plane that we live in, because like the stories of the Matrix and Star Wars are egoic drama, are hologramic story is also a spiritual concept. So, like when I'm given to anyone in any way a gift of love, a gift of kindness, a gift, I am giving that to myself. Not in a way that, oh, I'm all high and mighty. Look, I gave to this poor person, but that is definitely me that I'm giving to. So if I'm in need, then I need to let go of what I'm holding on to, whether it be money or time or assistance. I need to let it go and give it to myself. It's I think somewhere up in here we were said it's a give and take. Like when you give, you must receive. Wasn't that in the last one or something?
Yeah, what remains is unreceived has not been given, but what has been given must have been received.
Right. Yeah.
If I've given it, truly, then it must have been received because it's received by me. The giving and the receiving are actually one. They're just seemingly different aspects in this world of duality, of oneness. I'm always giving and receiving to myself. And as I learned that lesson, I realized that there's only one awareness, that actually there's no separation. And that plays out, in this world as, well, maybe I've given to someone else, but actually I've given to myself. And I'll share a story, actually. It was a miracle that I had. So I got stuck in South Africa for quite a while. I was there for 3 years. So I was away from my family. I just couldn't get back. I couldn't get a visa, and there was COVID, and so there was all kinds of travel restrictions, and there was just no way at that point I was getting back. It was like I was stuck there. And so I was kind of feeling that separation and a little bit separated and isolated and alienated. And then this guy comes up to me. As you know, South Africa's a poor country. There's lots of beggars. So I'm just getting in my car. I just actually come out of a yoga session, and I'm about to drive away, and he knocks on my window, and I'm like, okay, he looks a bit, kind of down and out, and you could see, needed a good wash, and kind of looked like he a bit rough, like he might have been sleeping on the streets, and he really touched me. He was just like, he said, "Praise my brother," he said, I've come to Johannesburg from up north, and I caught a bus, and I was supposed to get a job, and it was all good promises, and I came, and I didn't have money to get back, and now I've run out of money, and I don't know how to get home to my family, and told me this whole story. And he could have been a con, and he could have been putting it on, but if he was a good one, because he was really genuine. But in the moment, I was like, well, if I give to him, I'm giving to myself, because this is my own story, you see. It's like when I give to him, I'm saying, okay, I'm actually healing the separation in my own mind from my own family. And I'm in the giving to him and allowing him, because he's like, I don't know how I'm going to get back to my wife and son. And I'm like, well, I'm in the same position, buddy. Unfortunately, mine isn't quite as simple as you. You just got to catch a bus, and it's a few hours drive north, and you just need like 100 rand. Mine is much more, seemingly complicated than that. But in the moment of giving to him, I was giving to myself. And so, I did. I gave him the money, and I blessed him, and I felt nurtured. And I felt hope because of that, you see.
Yeah.
And so he gave me the opportunity through giving him the money. That was my own opportunity to heal my own separation. And I did get back ultimately. Now, the interesting thing is, if I hadn't given the money, would I have got back? Who knows? I don't know. That might have been an alternative reality that played out. But in the moment, and because I've done this kind of training, it was very clear to me that this is a gift to me. It's my opportunity, so the money is irrelevant, really, because the money is just a tool. It's the giving of the love. It's saying, okay, I'll help you. You're a person in need. I'll help you because I'm in need, so I'm helping myself. And that's always the case. So then that heals the separation. In that moment, I didn't feel separate from him. I felt one with him, and he felt the oneness with me, and there was a connection. He said, "Thank you, my brother. God bless you. I'll remember you forever." Okay, there's a oneness. There's a joining that then heals the negative effects of the separation.
Yeah,
and that's what giving and receiving are all about. If we can learn that, it's a major lesson in this lifetime. Because the illusion is that when I give, I lose something. Okay, so on the physical level, I gave him the money, and that money was gone from me. I didn't have it anymore. But the truth is that I gained. I didn't lose anything. I gained love, I gained connection, I gained hope in that moment, and that is much more valuable than money. Money is an illusion. It's of no value really at all. But what I gained was something real, which ultimately brought me back here, and I am actually back in the UK, and that so my faith was being tested, and those that was an opportunity to affirm the truth. And help, as I wanted to receive, so you must give. So that was just, that was a good example. But this kind of thing happens often in life. We get given the opportunity to give to someone else, and in that giving, we receive ourselves. And it's always the giving and the receiving of love that's involved. Whether that, in that case, he wanted money, but actually the real transaction was a flow of love from me to him. And I'm letting go of my own skepticism, my own doubt and disbelief, my own lack of faith. And I'm like, oh, this guy's just a scam. I did have a couple of those thoughts. Am I being taken for a ride here? It's a letting go of that. Doubt and disbelief, and trusting in something, a power beyond. Whether he got home or not, whether he was a scam or not, who knows? I'll never know. But what it did for me was the whole point. It helped me in the moment. And so that's always the point. You're always giving to yourself.
Yeah, I was just talking about, this verse 7, or part 7 of this lesson. I was just talking about that yesterday, that because of my ego, or because of ego is one as well. Ego is one through all of us. And because of that, I create my own fear. I create my own perception of being scammed, of being harmed, of being rused, of being taken. I created that. So, and I was just talking about it yesterday. I did it on one of my podcasts, and then number 7 just came up, and I was like, so this is my second miracle in your class today. It's like, whoa, yeah.
No, but this is
I have nothing else. I just the recognition of a miracle. That's all.
Yeah. And a miracle is just a shift in perception.
Yeah.
This happens regularly in these classes. It's a field of miracles. It's amazing to see. Okay, I just got an awareness, because you're getting here direct truth from the greatest spiritual master who ever lived, coming directly through you. And now we're discussing it, and you've got some helpful reinterpretation. So the alternative words are just there to help you. It's not to change anything. It's actually to go deeper into the real meaning of what the meaning of what he's trying to communicate.
When are you going to print this?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, it's kind of a work in progress. So we're still doing it as we go, and every time I do it, I iterate it, and it gets better. The translations, it hasn't all been done, but every day, every day I do it. So every day there's a lesson. So every day there's translation that happens. And at the end of this year, so next February, then it should mainly be done.
Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah, because we'll have worked through the text and the workbook and the manual for teachers, and then we'll see. I'm not sure that I will ever print it as a like standalone book, because it's actually powerful in bite-sized chunks. So the way we study it is like, okay, let's break it down. It's one lesson at a time, and you read it in the original, you read it in the alternative. Something happens when you do that. There's more understanding that comes, and you discuss it live like this, or even if you're listening to this recording. That's why put it on YouTube. So I'm building a system where someone can tap into this and go, okay, if I really want to understand what this course is about, it's going to take a systematic, disciplined approach. I'm going to do this in 1 year. It's a 1-year program to really understand this course, lesson by lesson, day by day, because you have to chunk it down. It's too big a work to do all at once. There's no way you're gonna be able to process this amount of change, even if you can read. I mean, there's no reason why you couldn't read the course in a few days, because one can read a 1,300-page book in a few days if you really. But to process it and really internalize it and make that amount of change and shift takes time. And you have to kind of give your mind and your body as well, because your body's got to sort of catch up to the mind, and often there's physical changes that happen and stuff. So slowly, one day at a time, in little bite-sized chunks. There's that saying, how do you eat an elephant? Well, the course is the elephant. You do it one bite at a time. So little bite-sized chunks, little miracles by miracles, each lesson at a time. And then you start, really getting it and making real progress. That's what I see every day, because we do this 6 days a week. So it's just amazing to watch people's shifts and transformations, and to be part of that. So look, I say join us again. You did a 3-week, and I don't know what happened there, because you went halfway through the course and then it just didn't work for whatever reason. The timing wasn't right for you. But maybe now's the time. So join us for 3 weeks. You can do as many of these lessons, many of these sessions as you want. I'll put you on the Telegram group and send you emails, and dive in for 3 weeks.
Yeah, no, I already texted you and told you to send me the link so I could just join. And as soon as I can, I'll just join. It'll be fine.
Yeah,
I already know who you are.
yeah. I mean, we go way back. What, 15 years almost? No, more. I think it was almost 20 years.
It's close to 20 years.
Yeah, it was around 2005, somewhere around there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
No, so it was in the early days. I just sort of started, and I put out I
met you through your CDs. Remember, I took a picture of those CDs like about a year and a half ago at my office, and I was like, "Look what I did."
Yeah, very interesting. I did those CDs, around 2010. So okay, it was about.
And kids are like, "What's a CD?"
What's the CD? Now we just download, but funny.
Yeah, I think I added it to my computer. Do you still have those audios?
Yeah, I still got the recording somewhere. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. I've sort of moved on. They're old, but there's still value in them, I suppose.
Yeah, I listened to them that day.
Yeah.
I put them in I have a external drive for my computer, and I stuck them in there, loaded them to the computer, and listened to them. And I was just like, because truth is just truth, no matter how much time passes. You might have different distinctions, but truth is just truth.
Yeah. I suppose I still had. I mean, I was like, whoa, did I really understand anything? But I suppose I did. There was there was some understanding, but I've gone way deeper. Like now it's a way deeper. Like, okay, so now we really, well, you think you really understand, and then there's like another level of, okay, I thought I got it, but actually I didn't really get it. So now there's something else reveals. And so that's what this process does. The course has these it's called deeper levels of significance. So you go deeper and deeper into it, and it reveals more the more you work with it. So you can never get bored of it, because it's your own journey of awakening, which is what you're here to do. So you can't possibly get bored with that. It's in fact the most inspiring, awakening, enlivening thing you can do with your life. And this is just a tool, that facilitates that. So like I've worked with the course for 17 years, and like every time I do it, it's like another level. And now I'm teaching it, and other people are getting the shifts, and you go, wow, it's just amazing. So it's just the most incredible teaching that you see working real time. So when you say, well, I just did another miracle, that's not unusual. People just get them all the time, because that's the nature of the teaching. Truth is true, as you say.
Truth is true.
Yeah. So what I'll do after this call is I'll add you to the mailing list. You'll get an email every day. And are you on Telegram? You on Telegram?
Yeah, I'm on Telegram.
Yeah. So I'll add you to the Telegram group. So I send out this similar content. It's just a bit shorter than the email on Telegram.
Okay.
And so you can use whichever platform you prefer, and then join us for the live calls. So there's a live
Okay.
calls 6 days a week, Monday to Friday, and also Sunday. So there'll be one tomorrow at what'll that be? 6:30 your time. So it's quite early, but maybe if you get up early, then you can
I'm
join.
an early riser.
They generally
And
go.
a late
They generally
sleeper.
go on. They generally go on until it can be 2, 3, 4 hours depending on what we got to cover. So we cover the lesson for the day, and then we cover the text for the day, and there's an email. So usually just start brief intro with the email, the expression session, which is people sharing. So depending on what's shared, that can go on for half an hour or an hour, and then we go into the teaching, the email, and then go into the lesson, and then the text. So it's pretty comprehensive. And then sometimes people will come for a bit. Sally often stays for like a couple of hours, and then she'll drop off, and then someone else will come in, and so it's you can join for whatever part of it you'd like to, and you don't have to join every day. The recordings get posted to the group, so you can
Okay.
you can listen to the recordings either on YouTube, or you can listen on the actual Telegram group. I post them as voice notes, so you can, and I split them so each section is in a separate voice note and labeled. So there's a load of content coming every day that if you miss the live calls, you can listen to it. And the idea is in the 3 weeks, just immerse yourself. Really go, okay, I'm just going to really go into this process and do as much as I can to give it a chance to really, work miracles. And then, after 3 weeks, you'll have a pretty good idea whether you want to continue or not.
Okay.
All right. So number 8, Elaine, if you can read that one. Today I try to understand the truth.
Right. I thought I just read the last one.
She did. He just don't
Yeah.
want me to read.
Okay.
I'm joking. I'll read it.
Do you want to read it?
Yeah, I'll read it.
Okay.
So today I try to understand the truth that giver and receiver are the same. I will need help to make this meaningful because it is so alien to the thoughts to which you are accustomed.
Oh, sorry, that needs to be corrected. I am accustomed.
Okay. I will need to make this meaningful because it is so alien to the thoughts to which I am accustomed. But the help I need is there. I give it my faith today and ask it that it share my practicing. Practicing is that how you, yeah, that's not how you spell it, right?
That's English. That's UK British spelling. Yeah.
Oh, that's British.
American spelling is C. Yeah. So they're in the original. C is practicing. But most of the people in my community. In fact, you're the only one now.
Just from the US.
Oh, he's from the US. But
Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah,
I learned something new today.
the original there in US spelling. Yeah.
Okay. I give it my faith today and ask it that it share my practicing in truth today. And if I only catch a tiny glimpse of the release that lies in the idea I practice for today, this is a magnificent day for the world.
Yeah. Have you say it in the first person? Yeah. So have a read this in the original, and then
Today,
read it in the alternative, and see the difference in your perception of it.
Today we try to understand the truth. The giver and receiver are the same. Today I try to understand the truth that the giver and receiver are the same. You will need help to make this meaningful because it's so alien to the thoughts to which you are accustomed. I will need help to make this meaningful because it is so alien to the thoughts which I am accustomed. But the help you need is there. But the help I need is there. Would the help I not be need is here? The help I need is here? Or is there? Or does it matter?
Well, yeah, you could. This is what we do. It's like, okay, if it's more meaningful to say here than there, then we change it. You see. So that's the beauty of translation. You just go, okay, well, if it works, then we change it on the fly. as we go.
Yeah.
So it's not a fixed. I think again, too often people are like, well, the course is like a Bible, right? And so it's set in stone, and you can't change a word of it because it's the word of God, and then it gets rigid, it gets fixed.
Yeah.
And what's actually needed in I think desperately in this world is a reinterpretation of the course, so it makes it more accessible for people, so they can understand this thing. It's not about the words; it's about the understanding that the words are designed to bring. You know, as Yeshua even says, you know, words are symbols twice removed from reality. It's not about the words. The words are just symbols. They're pointers. The words aren't sacred. The words are symbols pointing to the sacred. So if the symbols aren't working so well for people, then change the symbols, because they're just symbols. Yeah. Change the symbols into something that's going to help people to find the truth more directly, make it more accessible. So that's kind of what's unfolded over the last few years of doing a lot of this work. I've spent hours and hours and hours, every week doing these kinds of live sessions. You see what's helpful, and you go, okay, well, if that's helpful, then that's what we should do. And so that's how the translations have come about. And it does seem to be helpful for most people to read. So if you read in the third person and you read in the first person, do you notice a difference?
Yeah.
It's more immediate in the first person, isn't it? It becomes more like, oh, this is an affirmation of my truth, not someone telling me the truth. It's an affirmation of my truth because it's stated in the first person. I give it my faith today, and I ask it that it share my practicing in truth today. And then it becomes very, powerful. And that's the point, is to make it more powerful for people. So that experientially, experiential understanding arises in people's minds. There's not just a theory, it's not just concepts. It's like, oh, I'm actually getting this, I'm feeling it. And you feel it when you have a shift like you had two, you feel it. You're like, yeah, something just happened there. I can feel that.
Yeah.
That's how awakening works. You have to have those experiential shifts. They call it in the East a moment of satori. It's a moment of insight. If you keep having those, then that's how awakening works. Insight after insight after insight. You start waking up.
Okay. So give him your faith today and ask him that he share your practicing in truth today. I give it my faith today and ask it that it share my practicing in truth today. And if you only catch a tiny glimpse of the release that lies in the idea we practice for today, this is a day of glory for the world. And if I only catch a tiny glimpse of the release that lies in the idea I practice for today, this is a magnificent day for the world.
So you see, if you read it like that, you read original and then you read the alternative, it just, first of all, it gives you a second go at it, right? So you have to study this material. It's not like, okay, I'm just reading it quickly. It's like, okay, so I'm pausing, I'm reading. It makes you pay attention, it makes you pause and take more time. And then in the reinterpretation, in the alternative, something else just comes in, doesn't it? There's like another understanding. Personalizing it makes it more immediate. The words, instead of him. Well, for a lot of people, like, well, is God a him, really?
Yeah.
Him. There's no masculine, feminine in God. It's beyond gender. So the language, the gender-based language, doesn't really serve the purpose of a non-dual awareness. So then we call it it. It is neutral. It's not masculine or feminine.
Yes.
So those little shifts, and you add all that up, it seems to make quite a big difference for people's understanding.
Yeah.
So, I'm excited. I think we've got something really, really life-changing, really, that can really change people's minds and lives if they get stuck into it. I mean, it takes work. Nothing's for nothing. It doesn't just happen. It's not going to happen if you don't have any commitment. But if you go, yeah, I really want the truth above all else. That's my yearning. That's my deepest commitment. Then this program will do it for you. This program can awaken you fully. I've seen it, with people like Sally, the kind of shifts that happen, and that's what I wanted to create with the guidance of the Holy Spirit. Something that really woke people up. It wasn't just pretending. It wasn't kind of some spiritual smorgasbord of like, yeah, okay, we'll have a bit of this and have a bit of that. It was like, okay, this is a path. You're going to go really deep, and you're gonna access the deepest truth in your mind, day by day, systematically, progressively. So just dive in, and if you're up for it, use it, and it can take you all the way to enlightenment.
Yeah.
Okay, so any thoughts about number 8? What's he saying there in summary? So what I also do is I ask you to summarize it. So then you have to go, okay, so like I have to understand it to summarize it. So it's all learning. So okay, so I've got to actually really process this and understand deeply what he's saying to summarize.
Yeah. So in this drama, I become accustomed to thoughts of separation, not thoughts of the truth, even to the giving and receiving. When I give, I lose in my accustomed thoughts. But in this the aware perception, and oh man, like I got another miracle earlier today in the course that between consciousness and awareness, they're not the same. I kind of perceive them as the same before today, because I was always using consciousness to explain awareness.
But was that in this session?
In that first one, yeah.
So consciousness is not the same as awareness. That's a key distinction. Consciousness, in course terms, is the domain of the ego, he says. This is the domain of the ego. It's the domain of the separate identity, of an idea of separation that then becomes the one consciousness that holds the idea of separation, and then that splits into multiple fragmented individual consciousnesses that seemingly have reality within the construct of the ego. This all seems to be real, but it's all illusion, because that one idea is false. And very few people understand that. I've seen spiritual teachers, and quite advanced spiritual teachers, they don't understand the distinction in consciousness and awareness. And in the course terms, fundamental distinction, because consciousness is of the illusion, and it doesn't matter how high you go in ego consciousness, it's still an illusion.
Yeah.
However, if you get there and you start perceiving that there's one universal consciousness that made up the whole world and the whole universe, you're only one step away from getting back to awareness, you see. You're not that far, because you're like, okay, there's only one consciousness going on, but there's another step to go, oh, but hang on, maybe that consciousness, this universal consciousness, universal mind, the Gnostics call it, maybe that's an illusion. Maybe it's all an illusion, see? All of it. And underneath that is true awareness, pure formless awareness, as we call it. That is God. That's the foundation, the ground of being that never changes, that has not changed one iota at all, irrespective of whatever's happened in this crazy place we call the world and the universe, whatever's It's not affected by that at all. It's just pure awareness that remains as it always has been, as it always was. It's completely changeless, and it's still there in our mind, available to us if we will let go of all the other false beliefs that cover it over. So I had, in fact, I think this was after, when did you do the course?
Me?
Was it, I think it was prior to, it was more than 2 years ago.
2018 is the last set of emails I have.
Yes. So 2018.
Yeah, so it's been more than 2 years.
And then didn't you have another go subsequent to that? I think you did. You did.
I might have.
You had another go. Yeah, but anyway, subsequent to that, I did something called a Vipassana meditation retreat. Just 10 days of intensive meditation in the Buddhist style. So it's like 12 hours a day. And after about 9 days of this, I got to day 9, and I was physically really tired. So because you're sitting, your body gets tired. So somebody me said, just lie down. And they said, no, never lie down. You can't lie down. I was like, I'm just going to lie down. I'm really tired. I lie down on my bed, and I just went into this awareness. I had this experience. All I could say afterwards was this pure formless awareness. I was aware, but there was no thought going on. There was no like dualistic thought. I don't know how long it lasted. I don't think it was very long, because there's no sense of time. But there was just a pure formless awareness that arose in my mind. And then I came out of it, and immediately there was this like massive download. I downloaded the whole course, because I've been studying it for years, and it was like suddenly it all made sense to me. I was like, oh my God, I absolutely get this. That awareness that I just experienced, that is the truth, and nothing else is true. And everything else, all the crap that I've thought in my life and anyone else has thought, is just a covering over that awareness. And that's the veil of illusion that's covered over that awareness. And the world is just the justification for all of the false ideas, all the false beliefs and thoughts and emotions that the ego wants to think and believe. The world just seemingly justifies all that. So the illusion of the world seemingly outside of me and the illusion in my mind of a separate self are really one and the same illusion. They're just different aspects of the same thing. So as within, so without, right? So the projection of the world is just the projection of my own separate self. And that's the veil of illusion that I've covered over. I realized that I had done it. I had pulled this illusion over, the veil of illusion over that awareness. And that was so devastating. I cried. I was like, how could I have done that? That pristine, pure, formless awareness, that everything was there. Everything that I could ever want is in that moment. And I said, no, I don't want that. I covered it over and created all this illusion and seemingly separated from it. And then you go wandering in a world of illusion, trying to find the truth, trying to find some hope and salvation in this false world you've created. And you never find it because you're looking outside of yourself and you never find it outside of you. And in that moment, everything just became so clear. It was like, I get it. And I understand why they call it a veil of illusion. It was like just the whole thing just dropped. And that's when I really started to understand this course. Well, not started. I'd started to understand it years before, but really when I got it, and it was like, okay. And then subsequent to that, I ran almost immediately afterwards, I started a new course with a bunch of people, some of whom were in the UK. And if you stick around, you'll meet one of them, John. He's still with us. And then he started he referred people in the UK. And so it grew into a community. Before that, it just hadn't got legs. It hadn't grown. But it was interesting when I had that awareness and that awakening, then it started to spread, because then I think I was ready to actually teach it on another level. And then all this translation and stuff has unfolded over the last couple of years. In fact, that was almost 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago. It was June 2021 that I ran that Art of Letting Go course, which was the start of this community that we now have. So it's been an interesting journey, but you see as within, so without. As I awoke, so things shifted and it started to grow. And before that, it obviously wasn't ready. And now here you are, so you obviously, it's a reason. It's no accidents. You're here for a reason.
No,
And there's a reason why you reached out. You sent me something about the wisdom app, and I was like, oh, okay, I haven't heard of you from ages. So then I invited you, and that's how it goes. The spirit orchestrates these things.
yeah, every time.
Yeah, and that's the miracle. So we are all being guided in this plan of the at-one-ment, and it's an interlocking chain. So my at-one-ment and yours interlock, and that awakens both of us.
Yeah.
And that's the power of community and working with other like-minded people. It's you can't really awaken on your own, truth be told, because you're not on your own. That's the whole point. You got to awaken out of that illusion that you're on your own. You're not on your own, so you can't really awaken on your own. So you awaken with with others, and you realize that you are them and they are you, and
Yeah,
they're more awakening.
I often say that, when I'm teaching that, and I like that distinction that you had in that that other document as well. But neither here nor there. That because we are all one, and the perceived the perceived separation, that guilt that we feel that we destroyed God, the once you realize you won in this egoic state, it's really mind blowing. That's why when miracles come, you got to pause because you have no concept of it. Like there's no concept in the egoic state of the mind of God is crazy to the ego. God can look at himself. How can a man look at themselves? Well, a manifestation can't look at themselves. A manifestation looks at others. So, but God and the greatness of love and the consciousness, not the consciousness. Oh, see, I learned that it's not the consciousness, the awareness.
The awareness beyond the consciousness. It's the awareness beyond the idea of separation. Yeah. That's the ground of being that philosophers have talked about. That's the perennial truth that underlies all the great wisdom traditions. It's like there's something there, that which cannot be touched, tainted, changed in any way. And when you have one glimpse of that, like I had that moment, it wasn't very long, it was maybe a few minutes. It wasn't a long time. It doesn't need to be a long time. It's like it's completely life-changing. I will never forget that moment for the rest of my life, because it's like that was absolutely that was base level. That was ground zero. In the Ho'oponopono, they talk about 0 point. That's ground zero. You can't go beyond that. That's awareness in its purest form. That's God. That's what we're all looking for. And when you touch it once, you experience it, you go, oh my God, that's what it is. That's what it's all about. I've been missing it my whole life, but that's what it is. And now finally, I don't just have intellectual knowledge, it's an experiential knowledge. I get it because I've experienced it. And then all of the teachings and stuff makes sense. You're like, okay, like now it almost starts to make a lot more sense, because that is what they're all pointing to. That's the pearl of greatest price that everyone's seeking. And, I got it. I experienced it when I let go. I let go of the practice. There was no practice in that moment. It had taken all of that discipline and years, and then 9 days of intensive meditation, doing like 12 hours a day to prepare me. But then I had to let go. It's like, okay, I'm just letting go, and I'm lying back because I'm tired, and I'm not going to practice. I'm just going to lie down and rest. And it was like, boom, just all drops in. Which is exactly, funnily enough, what the Buddha experienced. He did all his practices and he was trying and striving, and then eventually he just went, I'm so tired, I'm just gonna rest. I've had enough. And he gave up. And that's when he got it. Because it doesn't come from the striving, it comes from the resting. When you just,
Yeah.
well, it's a combination. He wouldn't have got there unless he'd strived and practiced. You know, he needed to do that to get himself to the point where he's so tired of all the striving that he's just like, okay, now finally I'm just gonna, you know, I'm just tired. I got to just give up this all this trying, and then he gets it.
Yeah,
It
definitely.
arises in the rest. As you said, it catch a tiny glimpse of the release that lies in the idea practice for today. This is a magnificent day for the world. So yeah,
A
like,
magnificent day. Yeah. I'm vibing. I mean, this is just like you said, this is just a time for me for this, because I didn't even know it was a time for me for this. Because I was thinking when you said something to me, I'm like, I got so many, I just like loosened my schedule on, you know, in always, you know, what you I'd say in the egoic plane here now where I'm living, I just loosened up my schedule where I'm not just ultra busy like I used to be. And but my schedule is still pretty much full with space for me to rest the body, you know. And I was like, I can't fill this back in with thinking. I can't
yeah.
fill this space back in. I don't think I have time. But I would have time for today, and I have. And I'm like, no, it's time for this. Like, I already knew that you were like brilliant with what you teach and the way you break it down and everything. But I just was like, you know, I don't know. I felt like I just didn't have time. But I know time is illusion. I I talk about that every day now. Like, yeah, time doesn't really exist. So it is how I perceive it to be. If I perceive I don't have time, of course I don't. You know, uh, if I perceive that I am going to create time, of course I can. You can always create time because time is an illusion. So I'll see you. Of course.
That, you know, that's what's happened for a lot of people. Like Sally's a good example. So she came on, she was like, she started her 3-week free trial. She's like, oh, okay, I've got an hour and a half. Then she'd like get restless. She, all right, I've got to go. And she was like, as she got into it, she was like, actually, I'll make the time. She can, you know, make the time for 2 or 3 hours, sometimes longer. You know, and
Yeah.
she's just amazing how the time would come available. It became a priority. She's like, okay, you know, I don't miss the calls. So she arranges, you know, she works for herself. So she arranges her time around the daily calls, and she's found a way to make it work for her. It works in her life. It's part of her. So it's her daily spiritual practice, and it's her own spiritual and personal growth. It's her own you know, growth as a teacher. She's a teacher herself. It's her own growth as a teacher, and she's found a way to integrate it into her life. So the idea of the 3 weeks, you know, is just really give it a go and try and fit this into your life in a way that could be sustainable. You go, yeah, I could actually continue this. This isn't just like a once-off kind of 3 weeks. This is like something I could, you know, I could do every day, every week, and you know, find a way to integrate this into my life. Because you know, honestly, that's what's required. If you're really going to awaken, you have to make this a way of life, and that's what the course is designed to do. It's a, you know, it's a spiritual path where it helps you to, you know, to really make this path part of your life, and the practices that are part of it a daily part of your life. And I've just given some structure, giving you like some tools and some structure to help you to do that, maybe in a way that's not going to be that easy to do on your own, without a, you know, a community. This is why, you know, people form communities and they have groups and they have teachers, because it helps them to stay on the path and helps them to stay disciplined. Whereas on your own, you know, as you know, the ego comes in and it tells you a story. It says you don't have time for this, and you're too tired and you're too busy. And then you fall off and you don't do it for a few days, and then you get out of the habit. And then before you know it, a few months are gone and you're not really practicing, and the ego's in charge again. And, you know, this is what happens. So it's like, okay, let's take a disciplined, systematic approach to this, and practice it daily. Break it down into bite-sized chunks. Practice it daily. I give you all the tools and the resources to help you do that. You've still got to make the time to do it, but it's all there on a plate for you. You're getting it all sent to you in emails and Telegram messages, and then the daily live calls are really what bring the community alive. So you can join every 6 days a week is one day that I have off. You can join 6 days a week and really immerse yourself in it. As much as no one does every call except me. So you choose how many times a week is feasible for you and how many hours at a time, and you find a way to make it work for you. And so that what I advise in the next 3 weeks is really just suspend everything else, because if you distract yourself and you're doing all kinds of other stuff, it's going to be difficult. Suspend all of your other practices and just do this for 3 weeks, give it a go, and then after 3 weeks you'll know whether this is something you want to continue. That's what Sally did. She started by a perfect avatar, because she came in, she went, okay, I've got a whole lot of other stuff going on, but I'm going to clear the decks and I'm just going to do this. And she did it for 3 weeks, and then she didn't look back. She was like, well, I'm just going to carry on doing this because it's more comprehensive and holistic than anything else I'm doing. And everything's in one place. So I don't need to look around and do various other courses, and I'm just going to do this. And, she's made tremendous progress as a result. So, that's the approach I'd recommend. Starting today, give it 3 weeks. And in 3 weeks' time, you'll know, is this something you want to continue with or not?
Yeah, I'll continue. I do have to go at this moment. I got to make some phone calls and I got to drive to Chicago. So,
Okay.
but yeah. I was like, I was so tired when at 1 o'clock, and I was like, you better push that button. Don't go to sleep. Push the button. I actually almost fell asleep for a second, and then he was like, get up and read. And I was like, get up and read.
Yeah, well, you made it, so well done, and welcome back.
I'll see you tomorrow then.
Yeah, join at so it'll be 6:30 your time.
Okay.
And we're going to try a little experiment tomorrow. Sally's going to kind of run the session. I'll be there, but we're just doing it as a little test run, because they might, in August, I'm planning to take a couple of weeks off.
Okay. So Sally going to run the group. Yeah,
I'll be there, listening in, but she's gonna run it. It's unusual because she hasn't done this before, so it's kind of an experiment. But I'm open to it. I have really a lot of other work. I've got another business I've got like 8 proposals to get out in the next week. I've got to create some time, so I'll be working away in the background while you guys are chatting. But join. There will be a session at 6:30 your time, so early morning. Same login link, but you'll have an email with every day. You'll get an email with the teaching for the day, and there's always,
I know you.
and it's also in Telegram. So just check the emails and Telegram message. It tells you what time it is. Because sometimes I do it early morning. For you, it'll be 6:30, or it'll be generally 5 p.m. Today was unusual. It was Father's Day. It was a Sunday, so it'll be 5 p.m. UK time, which is 6 hours behind. So it'll be 11 a.m. 11 a.m. Are you working for yourself, or do you have a job, or what's your?
I both. So I teach forgiveness, meditation, all that basically. I don't teach ACIM like you do, but basically same field. Awakening. I have had many miracles before I came to this today. So physical and spiritual, and they're all spiritual, right? But I mean, it was time. Today was time. Like, I was resisting it too. The separate me was resisting it.
Yeah. But
You,
you made it, and you came, and so
yeah,
just go with it. Go with it.
yeah,
No,
I'm
because
going.
this is just so, it's so powerful. This is life change. I wanted to create something with guidance. Obviously, it's not really me. It's just happened through me. But that was really life changing. I could say
Exactly.
honestly, because that's such a cliche in personal growth, isn't it? Oh, it's life changing. Like, is it really life changing, or is it just like your nice spin on, it's life changing because you want to sell something? No, I want to do something that's really genuine. If you commit to this program and you do it like Sally's done it, it's life changing. Absolutely change your life completely. 180-degree turnaround in your mindset, in your life. Everything changes. Because you're changing your fundamental operating system. You're changing the operating system of your life. That's what you're changing. So of course it's going to change. It's like changing Windows and saying, okay, I'm not going to use Windows as my operating system. I'm going to use Linux. It's a complete change. Everything's going to change on your computer because you change the operating system. It's the same fundamental change. And to do that requires, a disciplined, systematic approach. You're not going to just reboot it overnight and suddenly it's like, okay, slowly by increments. So that's, what the program does over 1 year. It's just in bite-sized chunks. We deal with each lesson, each section of the text. And if you miss the live calls, then there's recordings. And, you'll find in 3 weeks, you'll find a rhythm, find a rhythm with it. And then, you'll know. And if it, for whatever reason, it doesn't work for you, I hope it does. That's fine. It doesn't have hard feelings. I don't like hold grudges or anything. It's like, well, if it works, it does. And if it doesn't stick, then, so be it. But hopefully it will. If you're ready, then it'll work for you. There's a resonance. Then people who come in with a resonance and a willingness, and they're like, yeah, this program can really work for me. And yeah, so welcome aboard, and check your email tomorrow and Telegram message, and we'll see you.
You get some rest. It's super late.
For me, it's still early. 10 o'clock is 10 o'clock. Sorry, I can do all night. I've still got
Okay.
the email out for tomorrow. So, and your text message. So
Okay.
I might go to bed and then get up early. Sometimes I do that. So
Okay. I'll see you in the morning or afternoon your time.
yeah, your morning. Okay.
My morning.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
All right. Namaste.
Namaste.
All right. So I think I'm going to call it there. Good session. Thank you to everyone who joined, Elaine, Lauren, and Sally. Good session, and lots of miracles again. And join us tomorrow at 12:30 UK time. That's 6:30 Central Time in the US, or 1:30 SA time for our next session. It's me signing off for the night. Thanks for joining, everyone, and namaste.